These are the young ladies that are going to be teaching us about rotating shears and ADV in particular: Allison Locke, seated, and Antonella Rossi, standing. Now let's start by looking at how your hand would look if you were holding an opposing grip shear. You can see how the fingers are crushed down, the thumb tendon is stretched in order to collapse the hand, and it's very unhealthy for your hand. You compare it with a rotating shear, and you can see the hand is open in a relaxed, neutral position, very healthy, very comfortable, and no strain on the thumb tendon at all. To continue on with this comparison, now you see Allison holding an opposing grip shear and a crane style scissor in her hand at the same time. The opposing grip shear, as you could see, had her elevating her elbow tremendously to get into a horizontal position, where the crane style shear allows her to work with her elbow down. Now we'll zoom in and take a look again at the difference in the thumb movement as well. You'll watch as she opens the blades. Both blades are wide open. You could cut all the way to the pivot, but the work is finished with the rotating handled shear because of the wide grip, when you still have quite a bit more work to do with the opposing grip shear. Now Antonella is showing you the position that you would be in with your elbow up, cutting with an ordinary shear, trying to do a bob line. But now with a rotating shear, she can lower her elbow, straighten her wrist out, and put herself in a dramatically more healthy body posture. And that's the beauty of working with a rotating shear. Let's take a closer look at it now. Again, the normal position you'd be in with a fixed handled shear, and then the lower position you'd be in with the rotating shear. Here's Allison demonstrating the same thing, and again, that's the position with an ordinary shear, and again with a rotating shear. And once again, we'll go in for a closer look, and you really see how the thumb rotates as you drop your elbow. The same is true when you're cutting on top of the head. Now Antonella is showing us what it looks like when you're cutting with an ordinary shear on top of the head, and soon she'll drop her elbow down and allow that thumb to rotate, and we'll see again how much more comfortable it is to do this technique when you're working with a rotating shear. Once again, looking at it up close, the typical position you'd be in with a fixed handled shear, and the far more comfortable position that you're in with a rotating shear. Allison's demonstrating the same thing. Again, elbow up and elbow down, and as the elbow drops, the thumb turns automatically. Now here's Antonella demonstrating another technique, cutting back against the bottom of a bob line. And again, even this can be done more easily because the handle of the rotating shear allows you to shift so that your thumb faces the back, and it's much more comfortable. On top of the head also, again, point cutting techniques like this versus point cutting techniques like this. Once again, more comfortable with the rotating shear. As you move around the head, you find over and over again how much more comfortable it is to work with your elbow down and in a much straighter, healthier body posture. Cutting around the ear with the typical shear looks like this. The elbow's up in every position, going up, going horizontally, and going back down on the back side of the ear. Again, watch the elbow rising constantly, finally coming up and over the top of the ear, and the elbows pointing to the sky. With a rotating shear, all those techniques can be done with the elbow down. Now let's look at them individually, cutting upward with the elbow up, and now with the elbow down. Again, you simply drop the elbow and the thumb will rotate automatically. Cutting again with a typical shear, elbow up, and now we'll watch the elbow drop and the thumb turn. Much more comfortable for cutting in an upward direction with a rotating shear. Allison again will demonstrate the same thing. Awkward elbow up position versus comfortable elbow down position. Cutting horizontally across the top of the ear, the same is true. Elbow up versus elbow down. So again, as you can see, the rotating shear, no matter what angle you're cutting in, is going to allow you to work with the elbow down, with the wrist straight, and because of the wide grip, with the hand open as well. Again, Allison demonstrating that horizontal technique, elbow up and elbow down once again. Now when it comes time to cut down behind the ear, this is really when it takes an advantage. You can see the elbow is sky high, and then it comes down into a much more comfortable, healthy position when you rotate the thumb and allow it to drop. Allison will show us the same thing. Elbow sky high, and now she'll rotate down and the elbow drops into a much more comfortable position. Now Antonella is going to make it even more interesting by demonstrating a new technique called sakasama. What she'll do is start to push the shear over and then grip the thumb ring with her 2 fingers, reinsert her fingers into the shear, and now she's in a position to cut with the blades in a downward direction. Now this technique may look tricky, but it's really very simple, especially with the rotating shear. And the beauty of it is it can be applied in many situations where you need to cut in a downward direction. Let's look closely at it. She'll start to push the shear over, and the thumb ring will become in contact with her thumb and her finger. Then she's able to freely allow the shear to spin downward and reinsert her fingers, and now she's in position to cut. Again, Allison will demonstrate the awkward position you would normally be in and how quickly you can switch to a sakasama position to approach that technique comfortably. Rotating shears can help out in many ways when you're working around the client's face. Now, for example, Antonella is demonstrating a typical position that you would be in if you were point cutting into the fringe with an ordinary shear. But now you see how she can drop her elbow and work in a much more comfortable position. Looking at it more closely, the awkward elbow up position where you really have no control and no support versus the elbow down against your side, much more supported, much more control, really puts you in a much healthier body posture. Now for stair-step cutting around the fringe, again, the rotating handle can be a huge advantage. Instead of this awkward leaned over elbow up position, you can drop your elbow down, straighten out your wrist and your arm, and stand up straight and work in a healthier body posture. Again, this is the way many stylists are working today in salons with fixed-handled shears, and now she'll demonstrate again how much more comfortably you can work with a rotating handle shear by taking advantage of the thumb rotation. Slide cutting around the face, especially in a downward direction, can be really complicated, but Allison demonstrates how to backhand it, allowing the rotating thumb to make it easy. And again, let's look at sakasama for this technique, and you'll see the way you're going to want to be slide cutting in a downward direction around your client's faces, starting with your next haircut. Now ADV is a truly advanced shear made out of molybdenum alloy steel, some of the highest grade material you can get. Of course, with the rotating thumb that we've already talked so much about, it's extremely comfortable. And with its Teflon graphite pivot, this is one of the most long-lasting, smooth action shears you'll ever work with. The thing that really makes it special, though, is that ADV has the shortest thumb movement of any shear ever made. Here we compare it against an older style rotating thumb shear. Look at how much narrower the ADV handle is, so it's easier to palm for people with small hands. Look how much farther forward the thumb ring is, which is what reduces the thumb movement tremendously. With ADV, the future just got a lot more comfortable. I thank you for your time. We at Via San Francisco appreciate your listening. And now just a couple final thoughts for salespeople on selling rotating shears, because it really can be easy. Rule number 1 is never just hand a rotating shear to a stylist. If you do that, their first impression is that it's kind of different and they're not too sure what to make of it. But if you do a brief explanation with a little demonstration of the shear and then hand it to them, their first impression will be, I can get used to this. All you need to do is demonstrate some of the techniques you've seen here, like cutting a bob with your elbow up and then with it elbow down, or layering on top of the head with the elbow up and down. Going around a client's ear, first show them how it looks with the elbow up and end up looking like a contortionist as you go down the back side, and then bring the shear around, allowing the shear to rotate and keeping your elbow down. Now you'll need to practice holding the shear with your ring finger and thumb and moving just your thumb, and then you'll be able to do all of these techniques and walk a client right through it. If you follow these techniques, you'll find selling rotating shears is easy and fun, and you'll be doing every stylist a great service because they're much healthier for stylists. In fact, we have an insurance company in Canada right now looking at making it mandatory to use rotating shears if you want to have workers' compensation insurance, because they've seen such a reduction in claims. So rotating shears are healthier for every stylist, and learning to sell them will make you a hero to all of your clients. Thanks again for listening, and enjoy.